All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today, we are going to be continuing along the path of the Astrologian by looking at the first of the archetypes for it, the subclasses for it, called the Diurnal Sect. Now, first things first, as a reminder, if you are enjoying this, please be sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon and turn notifications on. All of those things really help the video to be able to spread. So thank you very much for that. So, quick refresher about 5th edition class design. In 5th edition D&D, every class is designed to play very differently right from the beginning. So, in order to do that, each class has these things that we could call defining features. A defining feature is either something that's unique to the class itself, or it's something that the class gets early or is able to use differently than other classes that get the same or a similar ability. In order for something to be considered a defining feature, it needs to show up within the first 2 levels. So, what is the defining feature of the Astrologian? Well, it's called draw. Draw effectively allows you to use your action to draw a card, and the way they simulate this is you roll a d6, and depending on which number comes up, you can use one of 6 essentially buffs for yourself or other players. Now, somebody in the comments of my last video actually brought up something really important about one of these effects, specifically the spire, where it gives you a non-spell slot resource to an ally, is what it says specifically there. And at for first level, it's only 1, but by the time you get up to 17th level, you can get 4 of these resources, which could be something like key points or sorcery points, but could also be draws because of how it's written there. So I am slightly modifying my suggestions on how to rebalance the class to specifically say that for the Spire, it cannot provide additional draws. Being able to use 1 limited resource to get up to 4 of the same limited resource effectively makes it unlimited, even with the other changes that I suggested. So, one additional change, the Spire itself cannot work for draws. And the other thing is for both the Ewer and the Spire, where the Ewer gives you spell slots and the Spire gives you resources, the Sorcerer has the ability to turn sorcery points into spell slots and spell slots into sorcery points. The limiting factor of the draw effect is none of the effects last longer than 25 seconds maximum, and you have to use the resources in that 25 seconds. In combat, that's up to 5 rounds. It's plenty of time to use it. Outside of combat, 25 seconds is 25 seconds. It's not meant to be a lot. But theoretically, a sorcerer could get the Ewer to get a 3rd level spell slot, immediately transform those that spell slot into sorcery points, and then keep the additional sorcery points, and eventually turn them back into a spell slot or whatever they really want. So the other modification I would have to put on specifically the Ewer and the Spire would be that any sorcery points that are turned into spell slots or spell slots that are turned into sorcery points by the Sorcerer's flexible casting ability are lost at the same time, the original resource you got from the draw would have been lost. That just will prevent this from being abused massively by smart players. So, that being said, let's really quick. I have to check to see what this was. Cool. All right. So, let's go ahead and dive into the Diurnal Sect. Now, if you remember from my video yesterday, if you even watched it, I did mention in Final Fantasy XIV there are two different kind of stances you can activate as an Astrologian that kind of change how you heal. The Diurnal and the Nocturnal Sects. And basically what they do is Diurnal adds a heal over time to a couple of your healing effects, and Nocturnal adds a shield to some of your effects, or some of your spells. So Diurnal Sect is meant to imitate that Diurnal Sect from Final Fantasy XIV, where you had the heal over time thing. Heal over time is not really a thing in 5th edition D&D, so I'm interested to see how well this deals with that. So, let's dive into this. At 2nd level, you actually get two different things. The first thing you get is called Fortunate Healing. Whenever you use a spell of 1st level or higher to restore hit points to a creature, you may expend an available draw to further empower the heal. The creature regains additional hit points equal to 1d6 plus your wisdom modifier. So, this is interesting, to say the least. First things first, one of the limiting factors of draw is the fact that in order to use draw, you have to use an action, which, with the fact that the Astrologian is a full spellcaster, means you are not going to be casting a spell. So that's a good balancing thing. You have this choice between draw or cast a spell. With Fortunate Healing, this incentivizes you to cast a spell instead of drawing, or gives you more incentive to cast spells, specifically healing spells, which is nice. However, 1d6 plus your wisdom modifier isn't really that useful, to be blunt. Even at 2nd level, maximum you're going to have at 2nd level, if you're using the point buy system, the maximum you can get from that is going to be 12 additional hit points, which isn't bad. I mean, at 2nd level, you generally are not going to have too much more than maybe 20 or 30 hit points. But once you get to 3rd level, you're still limited to that 12 hit point maximum, or actually 11 hit point maximum. 4th level, you might get up to 12 hit points. By 8th level, you might get up to 13 hit points, which isn't even enough to cushion you from a single attack, to be honest. And it uses some of your draws, or it uses a draw, which is already a limited resource. At 2nd level, you only have 3 of them per long rest, and you're basically going to have the choice of use your draw for Fortunate Healing to get effectively a d6 plus a static number extra healing, or you can use your draw to get something like the Bowl, which will reduce all damage by 1d6. So every time you get hit, you would effectively gain 1d6 hit points, because that much that would normally be taken off isn't. So Fortunate Healing, there really isn't a benefit to using it over draw. As much as it, quote unquote, gives you a choice between, well, you could do this and get a little extra healing, or you could draw. Draw is always the superior use of your limited resource of draws. So, as it's written right there, it's effectively worthless. If and you may get as little, because it's a D6. You may get as little as an additional 4 hit points for using your draw, and because all the draw effects last multiple rounds, there really isn't a way for fortune healing to ever be beneficial, and that's at level 2. The higher up you go, the less useful fortune healing is, to the point where by about between level 4 and level 8, there will never be a situation where fortunate healing is going to be beneficial to you ever. So bare minimum, fortunate healing needs to level up just like your draw effects level up. It should be 1d6 plus your wisdom modifier. Okay, at second level, okay, fine. That's okay. And you get to cast a spell with it, so that's fine. However, having it level up to 2d6 at 5th, 3d6 at 11, 4d6 at 17 makes it at least viable at higher levels. The main issue is going to be the bowl is always going to be better than fortunate healing if they use the same die. Yeah, it's just the way it's written here, because it is just a static one-time heal, the bowl is always going to be a better use of your draw than fortunate healing is. The only time you're ever going to use for fortunate healing, even with the modifications I mentioned, is if you have plenty of draws and you're not really worried about running out of any time soon. Then you may do it simply because, well, I can't make a draw this turn, so I might as well use a draw because I have them. But that probably won't be happening until you're tier 3 anyways. So, yeah, I have an idea about how to fix it, but unfortunately, later on in this subclass, they actually use that idea. So, yeah. I'll come back to this during final thoughts. But as of right now, fortunate healing is about useless. The next thing you get at second level is called Eyes of Azeyma, I think is how it's pronounced. You may expend an available draw to assist you in revealing dangers of the area. As an action, you may do a quick reading to scan for traps in the area, giving you advantage on perception checks for 1 minute. So, couple things about this. First, I like the fact that there is an out-of-combat use for draws. That is always good. Issue with this, in 5th edition, you don't use perception to find traps. You use investigation. They don't actually even use the same ability score to fuel them. Perception is a wisdom-based ability. Investigation is an intelligence-based ability. So if the intent of Eyes of Azeyma was supposed to be to help you be able to find traps, which is cool, and I like that, especially thinking of the idea of an Astrologian as more of a fortune teller kind of thing, even without this, with his not being the fortune teller subclass. I like that idea of them being able to kind of peer into the future and go, ooh, that's a bad thing there. But it should be on investigation checks instead of perception, because that's what you use to scan for traps. It also further, in my mind, it also kind of further incentivizes the idea of, let's change the Astrologian from a wisdom-based spellcaster to an intelligence-based spellcaster. The skills that they can get perception or they can get proficiency in are already pretty heavily weighted to intelligence over wisdom. And this Eyes of Azeyma fits better for wisdom or for intelligence. I think it would be cool to have an intelligence-based healer. There isn't a class right now that can heal using intelligence. But there are tons that can use both wisdom and charisma. Including things like the Favored Soul Sorcerer can be a healer. There's quite a few different builds of Bard that make really effective healers. The Monk has a healing subset, and the Monk is a wisdom-based one. Clerics are wisdom-based. Druids are wisdom-based. Rangers are wisdom-based spellcasters and can learn some healing. They don't generally make like a dedicated healer really well because they're half casters, but they can pick up in a pinch pretty well. So yeah, I really would like to see this an intelligence-based class instead of wisdom, and Eyes of Azeyma just kind of solidifies that for me because scanning for traps in 5th edition is intelligence-based. It's intelligence investigation, not wisdom perception. So. All right, going to 6th level, you get Diurnal Benefic. When you cast a spell of the 1st level or higher that restores hit points of an ally, you may leave a regenerative effect on all affected allies. After the spell is cast, the affected creature recovers 1d6 hit points at the start of their turn for a number of rounds equal to your wisdom ability modifier. You must then finish a short or long rest to use Diurnal Benefic again. So this was my idea for Fortunate Healing. If instead of it being just a flat bonus plus your wisdom modifier, to a single heal, if instead of that it was a heal over time effect, I think that would make a lot more sense. It fits with the class itself. The issue being that is exactly what Diurnal Benefic is. The other kind of weird thing is Diurnal Benefic is effectively a one and done ability. You can get it on a short or long rest, but it's still a one and done ability, whereas Fortunate Healing is only limited to your draws. So what I would prefer to see is shift Diurnal Benefic down to Fortunate Healing, where Fortunate Healing is you get the heal over time, and that's limited by your draws. And then Diurnal Benefic, we could go, okay, in addition to the heal over time, the first heal you do of that is going to be boosted as well. So I would almost say just flip Fortunate Healing and Diurnal Benefic. But Diurnal Benefic will be limited by draws. So Diurnal Benefic will use draws to be able to activate it. Fortunate Healing will have just a limited number of uses. However, I think it should be 2 per short or long rest instead of just 1, because, and I've said this before, one and done abilities, they don't get used. Just by adding one additional use of it, players will use it a lot more because players get into, I heard it called the potion fallacy in RPGs or something similar to that, or like the elixir fallacy. Basically, in games like Final Fantasy, you can get these items called elixirs. Elixirs fully restore your hit points and your magic points. They're really, really useful items. However, they are so useful that a lot of people will just never use them because they're like, well, I'm going to keep that for that really tough boss fight. when I really need it. And a lot of times you end up beating the game with a dozen or so elixirs in your inventory that you never used. And that's how one and done abilities generally tend to turn out. So yeah, what I think should happen, Diurnal Benefic, shift that to second level. Or even no, leave it where it is, but change it to Diurnal Benefic is limited by draws. So Diurnal Benefic, anytime you cast a first level spell, you can use a draw to cause it to heal. And then Fortunate Healing is a one and done, but it levels up just like everything else. And it's not a one and done, it's a two and done per short or long rest. I think that would work a lot better. It allows both the abilities to synergize together, where you could technically do Diurnal Benefic and Fortunate Healing on the same spell, which I like, because that will make Fortunate Healing that much more useful. Because again, as I mentioned before, even with the upgrade, the bowl is always going to be just better for the party. But if you can combine, if Fortunate Healing is no longer using a draw, but is now just something that you can do twice per short rest, that actually gives you an incentive to use it. And by combining it with Diurnal Benefic, Diurnal Benefic effectively is a more proactive version of the bowl. Yeah, that would be the only yeah, like, I mean, it works much better that way. So that's my suggestion. Flip Fortunate Healing into Diurnal Benefic. Have Diurnal Benefic at the second level, Fortunate Healing at 6th level, and then Fortunate Healing is a two and done per short or long rest. Diurnal Benefic is connected to draws, and Fortunate Healing levels up. Cool. All right. Going to 10th level, you get Lightspeed. Lightspeed Rescue. If anyone has no clue what that is referencing, that is the morphing call for Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. And this is the actual moves. Like, I'm so much of a Power Rangers fan, I learned the actual motions they make when they do their morphing call. Because the morphing call is a huge thing in Power Rangers. And so each group has their own different body movements they make. Like the original Mighty Morphin, they'd go behind their back and go, "It's morphin' time!" And then, like that. For Lightspeed Rescue, they'd go Lightspeed, Rescue, and then they had a little thing on their wrist, and they'd flick it, and it'd open up, and then it'd go like this, and then the shield would come in and put them in. This is how much of a dork I am. Anyway, so 10th level, Lightspeed. You may cast a first, second, or third level spell you have prepared as a bonus action by spending a number of available draws equal to the level of the spell you wish to cast. This is effectively simulating an ability in Final Fantasy XIV called. Oh, I'm forgetting what it's called. I think it's just Quick Cast. But effectively allows you to instant cast a spell. Most healers that get this are Swift Cast, maybe that's what it is, something like that. Anyway, most healers use it because the revive spell takes forever to cast. So in the middle of a battle, if somebody dies for whatever reason, you can Swift Cast revive and have them instantly back up and then start healing again and things like that. So that's effectively what Lightspeed is mimicking. And it makes sense. By 10th level, you have a fair number of draws. So using your draws to be able to bonus action cast spells is nice. It limits it to first, second, or third level spells. The limitations on casting spells still apply to this. So if you cast a spell as a bonus action, you cannot cast another leveled spell as an action unless it is a cantrip. So that will definitely all kind of work with that as well. And yeah, again, Lightspeed works really well with. Now, the other thing with Lightspeed is it is limited to leveled spells. The reason I mention this is sorcerers have a similar ability called Quicken Spell. But the thing with Quicken Spell is it works on cantrips. It works on any spell with a few kind of caveats in there. Lightspeed, you cannot quicken a cantrip. So that is something you have to be aware of. A lot of people think, well, why would you ever want to quicken a cantrip? Well, exactly for the limitation of bonus actions as a spell casting. If you cast a healing spell but you still want to do something, cantrips level up in their damage. So being able to quick cast one quicken one is really nice. And the fact that Lightspeed doesn't allow you to do that really does kind of inform you on how it's meant to be used. And again, relating it back to Final Fantasy XIV, Swiftcast is meant it's something that everyone in the healer role gets, and I think the ranged spellcasters get it as well, because I think my red mage has it too. But again, healers use it to heal. They will use it to cast revive, or sometimes they'll use it to just cast one of the really big healing spells really fast. So, and that's really where you're going to see kind of the most benefit from Lightspeed. That and combining it with draw. You know, drawing a card and using its effect, and then using Lightspeed to cast some sort of spell so that you're still getting something useful in your turn is going to make the class very powerful. You'll go through a lot of your draws doing that. But I think that's one of the reasons why you would probably see a lot more first and second level spells than third level spells cast using Lightspeed, just because 3 draws is a lot to be able to cast a single third level spell. And yeah. Anyway, so that's Lightspeed. Finally, at 14th level, you get Sun's Fortune. When you use the Fortunate Healing feature, the additional healing becomes 6 plus your Wisdom modifier. Additionally, you may roll 1d6 and apply the appropriate effect as if you had used the draw action. This is poorly worded, but effectively it means your Fortunate Healing, additional healing is maxed. And when you use Fortunate Healing, you may also use draw, effectively using the same draw. So now, anytime you use Fortunate Healing, you are effectively drawing plus Fortunate Healing, which screws up everything we've already done. Because we took Fortunate Healing and got it away from the draw aspect, and now it's a 2 and done per short rest. So with Sun's Fortune, now this is effectively giving you additional draws, which we don't want. However, if we were to just switch Sun's Fortune to affecting Diurnal Benefic instead of Fortunate Healing, with the changes we've already made, it actually works pretty well. It means your Diurnal Benefic healing is now maximized, which isn't a bad thing. It's not going to break anything by giving them maximum healing. And you can now draw as well when you do it, which effectively means the Diurnal Sect Astrologian is going to be mostly casting spells and not really using the draw action a ton by 14th level, because the draw action is now mixed into what we're going to call the Diurnal Benefic now, just because of how I've changed it. Which again is fine. It means by the time you're 14th level, you are kind of fitting in a little bit more to that full caster. It's not broken or anything, because in order to use Diurnal Benefic, you do have to cast a healing spell. So it's not completely breaking it where they no longer have to use the draw feature at all. It is simply giving you more incentive to cast healing spells and things like that. And then when you do use the draw, you can Lightspeed to cast lower level attack spells and things like that. So, yeah. So, for final thoughts. Overall, I like the subclass, but it needs modifications. I like the idea of a heal over time being built into the class. I think it's interesting and fun. Like I said before, Fortunate Healing as it's written here is completely pointless. However, if you switch Fortunate Healing and Diurnal Benefic, literally just switch them, and part of switching them is also switching what they are tied to as far as limitations. Diurnal Benefic uses a draw. Fortunate Healing is, instead of 1 per short or long rest, it's 2 per short or long rest. Just because, again, you never use them when it's just one and done. It's just how it is. And Fortunate Healing levels up just like everything else. The only thing I'm not 100% certain on is whether or not Diurnal Benefic should somehow level up. And I think instead of adding additional dice, I think the die itself should level up. So at 2nd level, it's a D6. At 5th level, it's a D8. At 11th level, it's a D10. At 17th level, it's a D12. Even with Sun's Fortune maximizing that, it's not going to be a big deal. And it's going to be beneficial no matter what. Again, these abilities that are limited to a single die that you get at low levels, at high levels become completely worthless. So they need to have some leveling factor. And giving Diurnal Benefic multiple dice would be broken. Especially now that we've tied Sun's Fortune to Diurnal Benefic instead of Fortunate Healing. But if it just upgrades the die, it's much easier. It fits with how other abilities similar to that work in 5th edition, and it works with everything else. So, yeah. Make those changes, and Diurnal Sect turns into a really fun way to play an Astrologian. Yeah. So, that is going to be all for me today. As always, if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to turn notifications on. All of those things are really important. I cannot stress how important they are. Please do that in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on finding traps in 5th edition? In earlier editions, it's always been a wisdom thing. It's always been a perception thing. They changed it in 5th edition to kind of change the abilities that people were using, because wisdom became this really overutilized thing, and intelligence was really only ever utilized by wizards. And that was it. So they wanted to give intelligence a few more things, and it makes sense that investigation is used to find traps. So let me know in the comments below, what are your opinions? Do you think traps should be found by perception, or do you agree with me that they should be intelligence? And do you think the Astrologian should be an intelligence-based spellcaster? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time, all right? Bye-bye.